What's up, y'all? It's NRW Nerds Rule the World back for another ShoPowSho. So, of course, it's the Dobro, the Babinka boy, the leader of the Holla Holla homies in the Center Gang. It's your boy Kuya P, and returning as you see on the screen, the cat that actually, again, if you don't know this, helped me film that intro. He has one of the best eyes I know in the business. He's an artistic brother. He's a talented brother. He's a former wrestler. He is a author, comics creator, filmmaker, director, photographer. The brother does it all. He's super talented. My good pal, Kuya Joe Carabeo.
What's up, Patrick?
What's up, man? How are you, dude?
Hey, man, it's good to see you again.
I'm always again.
I'm surprised we're not eating food while we do this at the same time.
You know what? That is the next episode. The next one we record together will need to be in person with food, talking it up. So just
like other.
The next thing you have to promote, we gotta be in person and we gotta eat and do the promo while eating. We got to do that. Only because you brought that up now. So I'm just saying, and especially because I'm with low energy right now. I'm not my normal self. So we definitely need to have some food the next time, man. But before we get rolling, people are like, man, wasn't Joe? Because I haven't done ShoPowShos in a minute. I think you're like 5 episodes back, man. But I've been slow on the ShoPowShos. Like, wasn't he just on talking Kira versus everyone? Yes, he was on, but we kept it specifically Kira versus everyone. And so this episode, we're going to get into more of my brother's story. But we're going to start this off with some Kira versus everyone talk, because as of this recording, my brother has that film in a dope film festival that if you're in the area, please go support it. Go check it out. Joe, let the people know.
Yeah, so it's no secret that I'm a graduate of Virginia Commonwealth University. I helped start one of the I would say revolutionary film festivals in the land, Project Resolution in Richmond. I worked with RVA TV. But the thing is, though, I haven't actually shown a film in a festival in Richmond in over 15 years.
Wow.
So it was such a joy when the Richmond Film Network wanted to show Kira vs. Everyone. And so that's going to be playing February 8th at the 4:30 block Shortcuts. Kira vs. Everyone is making its Richmond, Virginia premiere. It's a Richmond premiere. And I think it's such a cool thing. It's almost like a homecoming because I haven't shown so long, that was so deep in that film community at that for so many years. It's so cool to bring like a film that I think is so much me, so much. And I think it's gonna be a cool time because this is I feel like this is one of the most upcoming film festivals in our area, and it's so cool to be part of it. Kira vs. Everyone, February 8th, 4:30 at the park. It's not that physical park, but they have a venue called the park, and it's gonna be really awesome. I'm gonna have stuff to give away. I think I'm gonna give away. I have the original. This is the original illustration that Kenneth Rockford did. And we made posters of this, and I'm going to be just giving them away. So I'm going to have that for people at the screening. I think I'm going to have some comics to give away. I don't know where they are. I might give away some Astray books. I just want to give away stuff, Patrick. It feels like it's the type of show to give away stuff.
I love it, and especially because it's your home school. It's where you came from, where your creativity started in a lot of ways. You definitely want to give back to that community. And actually, that brings me a question, because you don't know this, but I've recently been taking my wife and I have been taking our daughter around doing school visits, you know, to figure out where she's going to go for her next step. So I'm curious about the arts programs at VCU. Maybe I should take my daughter to go check out VCU.
I mean, it is ranked as one of the best public, or the best public art school in the U.S. Okay. So I don't know if that means anything to you, but that's pretty high ranking to me. And you know, I thought that was so cool. Also, there's a difference for me personally. I didn't want to go to a college or an art school that was in, like in the middle of nowhere, sort of college campus type deal. You know how that is? You're just plopped into, some area. I wanted something that had culture attached to it and had some underground vibe to it. And Richmond, Virginia definitely had that. I mean, that's where Guar started out. You know what I mean? That's a heavy underground arts type territory. And I found that out like immediately. Like, I mean, it may not have been the safest thing for me to do, but like I would walk the streets when I first got there, like around the campus at nighttime, and you would feel like, oh, there's because you're in the city of Richmond, you can see stuff happening. That's not just like, oh, school related. Like happened almost none of the stuff I ever did in college was school related. It was always like, oh, there's a house show here. Oh, this guy is actually has his own screening or his own art gallery. And that's one of the things that we did when I went to school at VCU was nothing against the school, but I was already working professionally in film production, and I felt like there was things lacking at that time. I say at VCU for me to be the filmmaker I wanted to be. So we started our own film festival called Project Resolution, in which we had our own screen, we had our own PA, and we would literally set up our own film festival, and people can bring their films and they would get a critique or instant feedback. Because I don't know about you, Patrick, but when I signed up to go to film school, I wanted to make a film every week. And sometimes the structure of certain schools is you make one film a quarter or one film like a year. And I just can't do that, man. I just can't. Yeah. Like my heart was like, I need to make stuff.
Hell yeah.
And since I was already doing it professionally, I was like, I could do this part. And what was really cool is it was called Project Resolution, and I was the host, and it was cool. We started at a laundromat. We would do it after the laundromat closed and invite filmmakers and have a screen and show it there. And that became the thing. We would have our Project Resolution film festival at different places. Like if we would know, you would know when we put the flyer up, which is cool. It's a city, underground, punk rock, dark metal, put the flyer up, you'd find out where it is. And we packed that place with 100 people. We were at bowling alleys. We were at, like art gallery basements. We were on all types of stuff. I did that for almost 4 years, man. So like my college was all built up. It was cool because during college, for the classes, you're just supposed to turn in a project and boom, you're done. But I already had the projects because we were making movies every single month to show. Because we would have prompts. Like a prompt would be like, oh, today's prompt is like Tony Danza. Like you should have that somehow included. Sort of like how the 48-hour film festival is. I don't know if you know about that, but
oh yeah.
They have little themes and things. Yeah, we were essentially doing that, but like every single month, and people can just show their work. Yeah. You didn't have to have anything on with the theme, but as long as you showed your work. And then the last several years, we have a sponsorship from the Richmond theater called Firehouse Theater. So then we had a real theater that was our sponsor. And yeah, then I kept on rocking that out. I was the host. And then by the time it was, after a certain amount of years, I became brain dead. Patrick, I saw so many movies.
I can imagine. I know that nowadays.
These were 3-hour blocks, like a night, watching so many short films, so much. I was brain dead. And then after that, I was like, okay, I think it's time to hand this off to someone else. And what happened was podcasting became big because I was listening to one of my heroes, Kevin Smith and Scott Mosier, with their Smodcast. And I was already sort of in Northern Virginia doing like a radio show where like every Sunday. And I was like, and they're like, what's a podcast and what's a radio show? So my friend had a radio show. His name was Matt Charles. And he would just play music. And in between the songs, we would just talk about what's happening. And then what became the thing is everyone started saying, like, we just like hearing you guys talk. Why don't you just move that? Oh, yeah. What also happened was Carolyn Bolesky joined on that too. So then we had this podcast, this radio, it was a radio show because it was live on the air while I was doing Project Resolution. Project Resolution ended, and then the radio show had happened, and then we dropped out of the radio show because we're like, well, because we saw no one's listening live, but when we uploaded online, people are listening to it more, and they can always do that. We're like, why don't we just take this away? And then we found out, oh, you can't play music, but then like, well, people like hearing us talk. So then Carol and I just started doing these shows by ourselves and posting it. And thus not knowing we created the first podcast in the Washington D.C. area that started, and like we went for I don't know, 450 episodes weekly. We did not stop, and that was a long time. And I was still doing movies at that time. I have no idea where we're going with this, Patrick.
No, we're gonna backtrack. I'll bring us back. I'm gonna bring us back onto my layout, if you will. But I just love letting you go.
Yeah. I jumped off of doing something every month to now doing something every week.
So basically, that's just a reminder to what I said earlier. Joe Carabeo is a multi-hyphenate, y'all. So as you see, he is and you know, something that you don't get credit enough, a community organizer, community planner with these events that you do. You're a fire starter, bro. You get things going within the community, and it's innovative. It's fresh. You're on that cusp, man, and nothing but props to you, brother. And I was blessed. I think I did one of the radio things with you in Carolyn back when it was those days. I think I was a guest on one of those.
Yeah, you were on at least, I mean, at the beginning, 3 episodes, and I think, you know, then we just spawned out. I think because what happened was, I think that's what, in a way, that's what I learned from going to college.
Yeah.
Was the same thing with project resolution and all that. If you don't have what you need, make it.
Create the platform.
Exactly. I mean, and Robert Rodriguez even said that. It's like, just use what you have. I have a turtle and I have a guitar, I made a movie off of that. That's what Rodriguez said. So he was a good inspiration that, like, you don't have to have don't be the billionaire. You know, you can make what you want with what you have.
Well said. Well said. All right. I want to take us back though, bro. But we'll touch upon a little bit of that, but we don't when we get further into your story, because I like to start it off from the beginning, because you haven't done my regular style ShoPowSho yet.
That's true.
Joe. So thank you for sharing that. So again, like I said, we'll touch on that, but I want to get to a little bit of the beginning before we get there, and then we'll touch upon that. But all of that was just because as I was recording, before we dig into the rest of this podcast, I'm gonna have links in the description below for Joe. Go check it out. But this weekend, as of this recording, go support Kira versus Everyone at VCU. You said the 4 o'clock block?
Oh, sorry. It's not part of VCU, but it is the RFN, the Richmond Film Network. I mean, it's in the Richmond. Okay. It's in that town.
There you go. Yeah, just support Joe, as you said earlier. Go to that if you're in the area to show love, man. We greatly appreciate it. But just want to get those props out there. Because as a sidebar, knowing my brother Joe, and when we got going, he's got a lot of things going on, as you can already tell. This brother again is an innovator. He's a motivator. He's freaking Seth freaking Rollins. He does everything. It's Monday Night Joe today. Anyway,
why can't I be the Paul Heyman? I want to be the Paul Heyman.
Okay. And by the way, he's a super wrestling fan, y'all. He's one of my favorite wrestling buddies to talk wrestling, and we're gonna get into that because he also has some wrestling roots, which I really want to know, and we really never dug into it too much. So let's get into it, Joe. Let's have some fun. But as I get going, what I like to do at the very beginning of the conversation, the interview, is to see how much of you is in the DNA and what kind of came from the past to now. If there are ancestors, family, mother, father, uncle, aunts down the bloodline, if you will, that might have came through that to who you are now. So if you can just share a little bit of that, if you know a little bit of your parents' story, or just anything that is Joe Carabeo that we know. Did any of that come from the DNA? Was that in the roots? Do you know if anybody along the bloodline participated in any of that?
In what I do?
Yeah, if there's anything that was, were there filmmakers in the past, writers, community activists like yourself with what you do, getting people together? Just is any of that in there, or just any creative talents within the family that you're aware of?
So what's really unique is that, like, and it's sad for me to say this, is that I never, in this phase of my life or even outside of college, I didn't really have like a mentor. A lot of people have like, oh, this person mentored me into being a professional, or this person was my mentor and they told me how to get to it. I never really had that. So, and my parents gave me like a lot of freedom, but they would inject wisdom on me for the way they were. And just little side quips of like, try this, try this. I know that my dad isn't was an engineer, and I know that my mom, you know, my dad worked in a print shop at the Washington Hospital Center. My mom was a head nurse at the Washington Hospital Center, and that's how they met. And then boom, then here goes the life. When my dad was an engineer, they both came from the Philippines, 100%. One from Parañaque, one from Makati. I think my dad was from Makati. I'm trying to figure. I don't know the territories. I've been there. One of them is tougher than the other. So I know that. My dad had 10. I think he was one of 10. I think my mom was one of 5 or so. I think, and that always it didn't really connect with me how crazy it was that my dad was one of 10 until like recently, like 3 years ago, where I'm like, dude, that's a lot. You know what I mean?
Well, my mom had 12 brothers, bro, and she
That's a
was the
lot.
only girl. So 12 brothers, one girl.
That's
Crazy.
You got. I mean, there's lots of learning when it comes to that. I always like pictured like my dad's side because my mom's side was very nice. They're all like the same height. You know what I mean? Like they all have the same haircut eventually. I guess there was only my uncle Mike or my uncle Tito Bebo, who was also he was the father of my cousin Mike and also his siblings, who was also my drummer, who I played drums with. I remember him, but also I always looked at my dad's side because they were so they would never describe them. My grandfather was a like a chief of police or something like that. And then my dad would always say, like, even though he was like the head of the police, my family was such troublemakers. Like they would cause so much. That's lots of people to cause trouble, man.
Yeah.
They'd always be getting on fights, like in the basketball courts. I would always think of them as like a mafia. And whenever I asked my dad, I was like, I'd always wonder about certain people that were at our family parties who were like dressed in suits and stuff like that. It's like, is that guy part of the mafia? Is he looks like he's a mafia guy? And he was like, maybe. I mean, look at him. And I was like, are we all just part of the mafia? Is this how it is? And he's like, well, you know how church is.
The Catholic religion very is mafioso like in a lot of ways.
But I always remember, like, because we went to church a lot. My mom was, with going through nursing. There's a lot of church, going to church every single day. So there was a lot of church growing up for me. And then at the same time, there was the opposite. There was a lot of still the rebellion side that came from my dad. But he wasn't one of those guys that was always like, I'm rebellious. He was like that sort of like, I don't need to be tough. I was just always remember like when you go into a situation where there's tough or like, like people that you think are tough, for some reason they're all cool with my dad. You know what I mean? There's always that line.
So your dad was like the crime boss. So let's get into this a little bit now. So you're not aware. Back to the original question before we get into like ages 1 through 5. You don't know too many creative types, or at least they were more so tough guys than really the creative aspect of things.
Well, I can break it down for you because okay, so if you look it up, I'm not saying there's a competition in my family, but my cousin Charlene, who is also a Carabeo, was Miss Saigon. She was in Miss Saigon. So she has a theater background that was on Broadway, literally.
Wow.
She was hanging out with Lea Salonga and doing all that stuff. And she did theater doing all that. My brother, in high school did chorus and he was singing. And so he did all that stuff. So me being me with my natural, like, I'm not doing what you did.
Yeah.
I went and I did, as you can tell, the music. I'm more of a rock and roll guy. You know what I mean? My brother didn't like to read or do comics. I was all into reading and doing comics. And there's just that part of like, natural, I guess. We all love pro wrestling though. But there's that part. Even on the other television side, my cousin Jan Carabeo, she is a news anchor in Philadelphia. And it's so amazing to see her all the time on there.
Yeah.
And I remember her dad was asking me, like, how can Jan get it? Because I was working at NBC 12 during the shooting commercials, and her dad knew I was doing that. So he was like, is there any way, what should I do to try to get her to do that? She wants to be a news anchor. I was like, well, I don't really know about news, but just go for it. You know what I mean? You make the shots that you try for. And when it comes to creative, I remember my mom was the first person to introduce me to a camera and a guitar. My dad was he didn't do cartooning or drawing, but he was able to do drawing, but like the technical drawing side because he was an engineer. So he had that structure. You can even see it in his signature. It was very awesome. He knew how to do layouts, and I'll see him do layouts for stuff for like buildings or anything with engineering. It was so perfect line, and I saw that, and I guess that was inflicted on me too. Like there's drawing, there's music, there's photography in there, all of that. And then I remember my mom at one point saying, like, I remember she was like, in college, I did a little bit of protesting, and it didn't like click into me until later on, like, okay, there's a little bit of that. And there's also this thing I remember hearing that like, you know, high school and schools are tough. Sometimes people get bullied. Sometimes, I'm a younger brother. My brother would treat me like a younger brother, and we were roughhousing. And then my mom and dad would always say, like, okay, you guys can fight, its family has fights. But if someone messes with you, you should always have your family's back because we're always going to be here. And I always remember that. You know what I mean? It's like, and I always remember the fact of like, imagine how Peter, my brother's name is Peter. Imagine how Peter and Joe are fighting now. But if you mess with any one of them, you don't know what you're messing with because that energy will now go on to you and you're in trouble. And I think that's part of also my whole, that's what I saw too with my dad's side. It's like if someone's messing with the family, they all, whatever, 20,000 of them come and collide. So I love the idea of that type of family. You know what I mean? I don't like it doesn't connect with me, the picket fence family. It connects with me when it's like the family has your back, even though they might fight inside, because that's just, dude, when you're stuck with people forever, like you will butt heads, dude. It's just how it is. It goes with that. But then I think I learned the kindness, and I learned the compassion from my mom because she's a nurse, so she has to take care of lots and lots of people. And I grew up in hospitals. I used to go with her to hospitals to I don't know, wait because she can't instead of like daycare, I'd stay at hospitals and she would give me jobs to do, like, oh, fold these tools that you got to do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the answer. I forget if the answers the question. Where this?
Well, no. So really, it's just basically the arts is definitely in the blood, because from all the siblings that you stated, and cousins, that they've kind of pursued the arts, and just from some of the other commentary where you said that they handed you this and the third, which we're going to get into as we walk down the line of your life. But
I think they still. Here's my thing with the family. I think they were capable of doing it, but then part of it also felt like it didn't make sense. Like out of all the people on my side of the family, except for my cousin Mike, I'm the only one that likes comics. I'm the only one that really is dug into this. And I'm trying to figure out why I do. And it just might come down to it like all these things I do are just fucking cool. You know what I mean?
I love it.
It's just what it is, man.
Well, also, see, the thing is, so the question's kind of like twofold, to kind of highlight those other generations that have done it, but also we all know as Filipinos and first generation, second generation, if you will, the sacrifice that they did coming here. So they kind of put certain, I'm sure they wanted to become a rock star or this and the third, but they had to make a living and take care of the family and make sure you were fed and so on and so forth. that they didn't pursue the arts because we all know how difficult the arts can also be. And also,
Yeah, because
we're coming to America, so it's the
I,
sacrifices that are done for us in a lot of ways.
you know, it's cool. I've seen photos of my dad and his brother getting off the plane, like right from the Philippines. You know, they're all wearing their 70s stuff with their long hair and wearing the bell bottoms. They
Yeah,
look like a pretty badass band.
hell yeah,
And I think that's the one thing I also registered too, though, is that like I didn't when I was younger, I didn't know this now, but they were telling me these cool things. They were like, my dad was like, "Oh, you gotta listen to the Beach Boys. You gotta listen to the Beatles. You gotta listen to Sinatra and the Ventures. You gotta listen to these things." And it was only like after college, I listened to those things. Like those things are freaking badass, man.
I
My
love it.
my mom was all about the Beatles. My dad was like he was telling me about the all these things. It just didn't really compute yet because when you're a kid, you just like whatever, mom. I
Agreed.
don't understand these things. But now I remember my mom gave me her guitar for my first guitar class. You know what I mean? My dad, he knew all the pencil tools because one of my first drawing classes was technical drawing in high school, and my dad knew all the tools that I needed to make that class. So without saying pushing the arts, they gave me the tools.
I love
They
it.
didn't say like you need to play guitar, but I think
Yeah.
they found once I was into guitar, it's like, oh, we just happen to already have one. So maybe there's a brainwash happening here, Patrick.
Oh,
you
no,
know?
no. It's I think we're hitting on all angles. It's
Yeah.
but I love it, and it's just
And of course,
beautiful. It's just highlight those that came before, and then also how it's in the DNA
let's
and
take it back
sacrifices
even
that are also
further.
made for us. You know,
Even further. I'm digging even deeper. One of my earliest memories of
that's
my
what I
dad.
that's what I'm here to do. Let's go.
One of my earliest memories of my dad was always holding one of those like camera and VHS combos,
Yeah,
filming everything,
I
and
love
then
it.
showing it to me and teaching me like editing on that. I didn't know it was editing at the time, but like
Yeah.
one of my first memories is my dad with a camera and my mom with a film camera. And I mean that's pretty cool, you know.
That's beautiful, dude.
I
Yeah.
don't know if that's exactly what they're planning on doing it, but like if you have it and they actually were competent in doing it, maybe they're hiding that that's
Oh
what they
yeah.
want to do.
I'm bro. Uh, a lot of these conversations, and when you look back at things, you find out things about yourself that kind of maybe has sparked who you are in a lot of different ways. And also, that you find out that maybe those were their dreams, and I personally believe that we're our ancestors' dreams. I'm sure you've probably heard that. It's been on T-shirts and all that, but I believe that wholeheartedly in so many ways. Because if you look back at and so many guests that I've had on here, you included, dude, you're manifesting and you're living your own heart and inspirations, but a lot of that is in there. It's rooted in a lot of ways. I think in the blood. So I just love it.
It's
But
always it's
thanks
funny
for
because
sharing all
like
that. Yeah.
it's funny because my mom would always say you gotta learn Tagalog, right? You gotta learn this.
Same.
And of course, I'm like, no, I don't want to learn it. Stop telling me to learn it. And yeah, I still haven't learned it, but like that's that part. I'm like, you want to spread the culture. I was surrounded by I felt like in a way, see, it's unique, is that they would always my parents always it's Tagalog and family, they always speak Tagalog. They're always talking about ate Filipino food all the time. It was full
Yeah.
Filipino household without saying we're a Filipino household. I didn't know what a Filipino household was. I thought this is just how
You
we're
were
supposed
living it, but I think you might have in different ways, which we'll get into in certain respects, maybe without knowingly resisted in certain ways.
to. Yeah,
Because
I
I know I
didn't
did
know.
for myself personally in certain
It was so amazing, Patrick, when I went to eat at someone else's house and realized that they did not eat with a fork and spoon and that they did not have rice like for every single thing. That blew my mind. I was like, you only use a fork? How do you do that? You just use a fork, dude.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
There's no sinigang here? What is that?
All right, well, let's get there. Let's get there. So we showed love to the family in the DNA and where some of the roots have branched out. But let's get to ages 1 through 5. And you touched upon a little bit of that. Let's stay in this area. because we've been going all over the place. We went to high
sorry.
school, we went to college a little bit, but that's all good. That's what we do here. That eliminates some of that conversation later. So ages 1 through 5, what would your parents tell me about a young Joe Carabeo? What were you into? What do you recall? And what do you think they would say?
One of the 1 through 5. My mom would always tell me that I was very shy and quiet. I have one of my earliest memories is in a photo shoot that for some reason I was like not wanting to, I was, shy about the photo shoot, but I was wearing a Spider-Man t-shirt. I remember that. That's one of my youngest memories. I always have that. Like for some reason I remember like not wanting to take the photo. I was wearing a Spider-Man shirt and I remember the photo because it was up in my house, my childhood house, and I'd always see that. And I had a bowl cut, like you probably had a bowl cut too, Patrick.
I had a bowl cut too, brother.
Yeah, it's like their lack of skills.
I recall I think there's a picture of me in an Incredible Hulk shirt with a bowl cut between that age range. So I'm right there with you, dude.
Yeah, the laziest haircut people, Asian people, or whatever you want to call us, can get.
Yeah,
it's the reverse. It's the reverse of like the buzz cut. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you were you said you were shy, ages 1 through 5, growing up, and you said born and raised in this Washington D.C. area.
So I was born
child of nurses.
Yeah, I was born in Washington Hospital Center.
Okay.
And then I grew up in Northern Virginia, in Fairfax, Burke, the great the great Burke, Virginia.
Okay.
But yeah, 1 through 5, I have that memory. I have a memory of me and my brother like roughhousing, and we used to have one of those like, what are those, like the real heaters, like the mobile heaters. And I remember like we were wrestling and we left one of the, you wrestle with the pillows, and we left one of the pillows like close to the burner, and it like burned one of the corners of the pillows of the couch. Like those main couch pillows.
Oh yeah.
And there's like a big burned hole on it. And we never replaced it. There's a burned section, like it was big too.
Yeah.
It looked like an open wound. And we're not, so you learn a lesson. We're never, well, they didn't say never, but they just never replaced it.
Wow. So you grew up with a brother, just so you and one other sibling.
Yep, me and my older brother.
Older brother. All right. So 1 through 5, and you said you were wrestling. So was this when wrestling came into your life, between 1 and 5?
Wrestling came into my life at SummerSlam 1988. No, maybe in between that. Hold on. When was WrestleMania 4? Because that was the first time I ever went to my cousin Jason's house. My parents took us to my cousin Jason's house because they bought the pay-per-view to WrestleMania 4, and like, hey, you should go hang out with your cousins and you can watch this. And that was the first time I ever saw wrestling. I don't remember if I ever liked it, but I don't remember stopping since. So, and then after that, I remember SummerSlam 88 because Miss Elizabeth took off her skirt and the whole of that stuff.
Yeah. Do you recall your first wrestler that you really became a fan of?
Macho Man. He won that. Yeah. I remember watching that and being like, man, what's so great about Hogan? I don't like Hogan. I still don't like Hogan. I really don't like Hogan
now. But I was one of the Hogan fans back then, but
Why?
Also a Macho fan. I'm sorry, this is totally sidetracking. Do you remember when Jake the Snake, did you see the Python incident?
Yes, I saw that.
I actually remember watching that live and losing my freaking mind.
Yes.
Yeah?
Because I remember the early time, because when Jake the Snake, we're gonna go into wrestling. I remember that because like they had all those great guys on that WrestleMania 4. That was a great when they had to walk down the stairs to the ring. They had the tournament and and Andre the Giant and Hulk Hogan were feuding, and Macho Man, and they had Hogan help Macho Man win the title. That was cool. I always respected Macho Man's better than Hogan. Anyone's better.
Yeah. And I just remember when ordering the pay-per-views, the Joe Jusko posters, the Rumbles, the Survivor Series, those are ish. Anyway, we're sidetracking, but we'll get back to some wrestling. So wrestling, you got introduced a little bit ages 1 through 5 as you and your brother becoming a fan of it.
I think because if I was born in 81, right? Okay. So that means 1 through 5 would have been like 86.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm trying to remember if that was during that time or if that was because 88 that'll be that time. It might have been just
All
the
right.
cusp of
But
that.
we're gonna get through to 6 and 10 as we start, from being a kid to then going to elementary school and school years. So we can
But
transition into that
who
now.
remembers
Just
year one though? Who really
oh
remembers year
well,
one?
just what. Well, that's why I said, what would your parents say about a young you?
I know
So,
I do remember being on the stroller going to Epcot Center. I
oh,
remember
okay,
I don't know why. I don't remember Disney, but I remember Epcot Center a whole lot
yeah.
from that era.
And basically it's kind of like figuring out how different were you from then to now. So like, what were you into? So let's move from 1 to 5 to 6 to 10. As we start going to school, just certain the things of becoming self-aware, growing up, what kind of school activities, to see if any of that, kind of continued on. You know what I'm saying, Joe? So let's go into that 6 to 10 as we get ready to start school. Were you Oh, you were wearing a Spider-Man shirt. Let's go there. When did you first learn or remember reading comic books or seeing superheroes, and your first love in regards to like who's your favorite superheroes back then?
See, that's the funny part is I feel like that's the last time I ever remember wearing a Spider-Man shirt in that time. You know what I mean? It's just like was this Spider-Man shirt pushed upon me? Like maybe did I actually know what Spider-Man was at that
True.
time? Right? I don't know.
Like I said,
But
my mom had me wearing a Hulk shirt. I don't remember liking Hulk. Well, I
yeah,
do remember watching the Lou Ferrigno stuff.
you can't push
That
these
time period.
superheroes on me.
Yeah,
I
but
do
I know my mom
remember
pushed it onto me because she was actually getting the comic books at like the package store, the military base, and that's how I got into comic books.
I do remember that like on my own, I was watching a lot of cartoons and I was watching Ninja Turtles
Mm,
religiously from day one. I remember watching the very first Ninja Turtles like live on TV,
yeah.
watching that. And that was a big thing. You know what I mean? That was huge. I mean, the Ninja Turtles was my probably in my memory one of the first movies I remember seeing in the theater. One of the first concerts I went to because remember Ninja Turtles concert? I
Oh,
saw
you
that.
went to one of those?
Yeah, hell
Awesome.
yeah, I went to that at the Capitol Arena or whatever it is.
Hell yeah.
I saw that they wore all the gown and that's so that could have also been my very first album that I bought too of mine because they had a
Okay.
record that went with that.
Yeah.
So I watched a lot. I feel like I watched a lot of cartoons. I never really got into comics until later. I was a cartoon person. I do
Oh,
remember.
so like maybe high school comics or college comics?
No, no, look. So it's a weird thing. Oh, maybe I was wrong because I remember. So I'm trying to like make sense of my life.
No
I
worries. Yeah,
remember.
give me the 1 to 10. I'll just tip in this for you. Comics for me, not only was my mom like, because she worked at a package store, and the only thing that she could really, other than alcohol and candy and snacks, that you could give her your kid to, right, would be comic books. She wasn't going to be giving me that stuff other than like maybe some candy. So she brought home comic books. But also for me as a young kid, going to the barber shop was like Archie comic books. You'd have stacks of comic books at the barber shop, and that was like a thing. And then that's also what increased my love for comic books.
So what happened to me, and I'd like to pick this. I'm gonna try to drag these memories as I can.
Let's
I
go.
remember growing up and wanting to read comics because I would go to the Safeway and go to the magazine rack, and they had a pretty big magazine rack at that time. And looking through things, there's normal magazines, and I remember seeing the magazine called Cracked. I think it was like the
Yes.
opposite of Mad,
Love
or
cracked.
was that part
Cracked
of
and
Mad?
mad. Cracked and
Yeah,
mad.
I remember reading that, and I was like, "Is this the closest thing I have here to comics?" So I bought those, and that was, I think I still have them. That was the injection of like, okay, this is comics, but it's not really comics. And then I remember I went to, me and my family went to like some, not the Poconos or something like that. We went to like some vacation spot, and they had comics at their grocery store, and I remember getting the beginning of Revenge of the Sinister Six. I remember that,
Wow. Yeah, yeah.
Eric Larson janks back then.
Yes. So you started on Eric Larson. I started on McFarlane.
I didn't know who Eric Larson was at that time. I was just like, this is Spider-Man, right? Yeah. This is the first time I was reading Spider-Man. So I read that. And then at that point, I was like, oh, because I brought that back from vacation. I didn't know where to get comics. And then lo and behold, my cousin Mike, who we used to stay with a lot, who was also into wrestling, he was into comics. So when we used to stay at his place, he would introduce me to these comics that he got. He would never let them take that with me, but he was like, "Oh, look at it was DC stuff," and they're like, it's like he's like my brother's age. He was showing me this, so I had to find a spot in my place that had comics, and we lived in the same area. So he said, like, you can go to this place near the Heckinger off of Burke Center called Books. One half of it is old used books, and the other half is comics. And we went there. My parents went there. They had no idea. They had no idea what the comics was. We went there, and the first thing I see is like that. It's like the bag version of the Wolverine, the Punisher War Journal with Wolverine on the cover.
Yes.
And then it said, like, do not read comics or attempt to steal. And it was like all ziplocked, and it's like wooden cabinets and stuff like that. Underground feeling. I was like, oh man, this place is a little bit dangerous, right? First thing I bought, I was like, okay, well, I'll get this Avengers. So I got like, now I forgot. It was like the Galactic Wars. That's what I got. It was like the Avengers Galactic Wars. And I wasn't even really reading it. I was looking at it. You know what I mean? Yeah. But what's cool is like the Galactic Wars, and it would go to like Wonder Man and stuff like that. So I'll collect those. And then I think that
was your first crossover, maybe?
I didn't even know it was a crossover. I thought that's just how you're supposed to do it.
Yeah, you didn't know it, but that was like your first crossover.
I was being introduced to all these characters. I was like, oh, Wonder Man. Oh, Captain America. Oh, Vision. Nice. And then what was happening at an elementary school was they gave you a composition book and you're supposed to write stories, right? So I didn't know what to write about. So I really was retelling the Galactic Wars in these things. Like Captain America did this and Vision did that. And I still have those composition books. They make no sense to me now, but like I remember back in the day, I think that maybe that was like second grade or something like that. And having these books and writing the Galactic Wars and doing all that. And I think something happened, and I don't know if it came about at the same time, but around that time, that's when Batman the Animated Series came out.
Yeah.
And my friend Colin introduced me. He gave me his very first, not his, but he introduced me to Batman. And he gave me that. Like we're hanging out. It's like, here, take this Batman comics. He was another one of those kids on the corner, read comics. So it's like this awesome like underground thing. People read comics. Dude, read these comics. It's so cool. But it wasn't until like Batman the Animated Series where I actually got into Batman. But I never read Batman comics. But I was like all into the series.
Yeah.
Slowly that got me integrated into that world because at that time, I think at Springfield Mall around here or in University at Fair Oaks Mall, we had a comic book store called Another Universe.
Yep.
And that was huge to me because it's like a real store. Nothing wrong with the other store, but like that had that comic grit to it. But now this is like the mall version of it. And so it was that, and you can also buy comics at the Warner Brothers store at Fair Oaks Mall. Did you ever go to that?
Yeah. I remember the Warner Brothers store.
Because they sold graphic novels there, and also they had animation cells.
Yeah.
And
Very expensive.
It's like $500 then. Yeah. Back then.
Yeah.
So that became my thing. Man. It was like Batman the Animated Series. I was really into Batman. That was. And it's what's a weird thing too is, and I don't know why I started this, but I used to record. I think I still do, but in not the same way. I'll record all the stuff I watched, and I don't know why. I actually don't know why I do it, but like Ninja Turtles, I used to just record it. I guess so I can watch it over again. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And so So with Batman, I would watch all those episodes and record it. And what's cool is maybe this has another injection of my filmmaking was that I wanted to cut out the commercials. So I don't want the commercials.
Yeah.
So I found out you could pause it because when you knew it goes to black, pause it.
Yep.
And I knew there was a 3-second delay until when you get back. And I wanted to go from black back in. So when I knew like the commercial was like, okay, here's the Fox Kids, 3 seconds, get in, 1, 2. Oh, I made it.
Yep. I know what you mean.
I did that. And I used to every single day. That's what I look forward to every day was going home, getting that new episode, at 4:30. You had the whole entire Kids WB lineup, man.
Yeah. So the first bit of editing happened by recording on VHS some of your favorite cartoon episodes.
What's that? What was that?
As a kid? I said your first little bit of editing that you didn't know that you were doing is editing out those commercials as you were recording on VHS your favorite cartoons as a kid.
And here's another part that could have been the beginning of that too, because I'm going to jump forward a little bit while still recording. This is before the filmmaking stuff, but there's a little pocket here where a lot of people knew that I was recording everything. And this is the tape trade era.
I feel that. Yep.
So let's remember, so I was also at that time recording wrestling. I was recording TV shows and everything like that. And some people would find out that oh, he has this episode or he has that. They give you a tape and you give me money. And can you give me this, that, and that? And I would have the 2 VHS set up, right? And then I would edit it like that. I was I knew the 3-second delay. I can patch it in, pop it in the next episode, pop in. And I started getting crazy. I was dude, I can slice this. I can make the best of matches. You know what I mean? So I'd edit this is the best of Joe matches or best favorite Joe matches like that. And so that was part of the thing. But yeah, that's way before. But this time I'm just taping and trying to fill up all the Batman, the animated series, and we would watch that. And
I love it. So
good memories
tape
of those.
Hustler. If you will, VHS tape hustler. So, okay, we're in 1 through 10 right now. We keep on going all over the place, but that's all good. Where it's the content that I know what people want, and we love these stories. So you found a love for comics here and there, wrestling here and there, TMNT, one of your favorite cartoons. We're a little bit older. We're starting school between 1 and 10, obviously. As you get into school, you're becoming older. You're knowing your likes and dislikes. When did you start discovering? Let's inject this into this, or maybe does it start in elementary, middle school, high school? Because this is the ShoPowSho. When did you find out you were Filipino, if you will? Did you live in a Filipino neighborhood? When did you just kind of notice? Because society tells us without that's the factor that really tells you who you are, that you just maybe found out for yourself that you were different in any way, or did you ever feel different between that? Did that fall under between 1 through 10?
I've always known that I'm Filipino. No doubt. That was always a thing.
You definitely have Filipino nurses' moms. You grew up you're super Filipino with all of that. So yeah.
And also you got to understand this too. It's when you have, I guess, a big family like I do, these family parties we're having, they're not small.
By any means.
So we're the majority here. A lot of people.
How did you feel? So going along with that, how did you feel about that? Because if you look at some other episodes, a lot of us took that in certain ways. We appreciate it, but also some people, resisted that. I'm curious how you internalized that, and with all of that. And did you experience any racism or anything like that?
What, from 1 to 10?
Well, once you became self-aware who you are, that you're Filipino, and also did you all have any, self-hate in any way, or or self-love? You appreciated this. We try to unbox and unpack
Am I allowed to
these
jump
memories.
time, or do you want me to go into normal time?
Well,
So,
in between that time and then, well, and we're not going to lead into middle school, high school age, and get into
so
that.
I'd like to, yeah, let's break it down. I always love, though it became a running joke later on in my life, that I felt like I was not, we would say, Filipino enough, because
Exactly. This
I'm
is what
not
we're talking about.
blazing the flag. Hell, I don't even have, I never had school spirit. Why would I blaze the flag of anything? uh, but I am a family. I love my family. You know what I mean? And we are family what we are. And we are fucking Filipinos, man. I don't really know what that means in the grand scheme, but I'm proud to be a Filipino. There are so many times, still to this day, I remember people in high school, and I remember people in anything, when they were just like, "What are you?" I don't know what you are. I don't know what you are. I'm Filipino. What is that? You know what I mean? What is that? What is that to me? It's what I am, dude. It's like I never even classified that as being black, white, Asian, or whatever. It's the closest thing I could ever make people think is like, oh, it's sort of like Hawaiian. It's like, well, I'm not. Am I, Polynesian? I didn't even use Polynesian back then. But I just grew up. I grew up with people not knowing what I was, and in a way that affected me. I would say almost in a positive way, because that is such a cool enigma to be in. What are you? And when I got into high school, what are you became not definable. It meant that if you don't know what I am, I could be anywhere.
Mm.
You know what I mean? It's like it's one of those things I always felt like with my circle of friends. My circle of friends, we always classified as the UN because we are all of this. And what are you? Where are you Hawaiian? I don't know what Filipino is. It's like, well, I don't know what Filipino is. It's what I am. But I always, the closest thing to being what Filipino is was what my family is. And the closest thing I can think of, well, if my family's Filipino, then, and we're all a bunch of rebellious, like troublemakers, then I guess that's what being a Filipino is rebellious. And then my mom, the first time I went to the Philippines, she would, I was like, what is Filipino? What is the rebellious part of Philippines? Who is the biggest rebellious person? And then she would say like, Jose Rizal. And I was like, I think that's what it is. I remember like the Rizals like that. And I got a shirt that said that because people were wearing Che Guevara, right? And I was like, all right, I don't know who Che Guevara is. I guess that's the rebel icon for that side. Well, I got Jose Rizal. He's the rebellious part of their side. Yeah. I guess everyone has their icons. And I was like, is that Filipino? Is that what being Filipino is? Is that you are a person that's like rebellious? And I love that. It's like, I guess it's in
that's
my
rock
blood.
And roll, brother. That's rock and roll.
Yeah. It just gets passed down. It's like, I guess we always are smart and troublemaker, but we have skills. My mom was always telling me, like, yeah, you know who the best person is now who did this? It's a Filipino. Oh, you know who the best person does that? It's a Filipino. They don't shout it out, but when you look behind the scenes, oh, there's that key Filipino person. And I remember my uncle Rudy, Rudy, he worked in the government at a high-ranking military stat. I was like, see, there he is. There's your key Filipino up there in the White House. And that's why I always thought, I was like, is that what being Filipino is? It's like you're this great underground, you know what I mean? It's like how my dad was.
Yeah.
You may not shout like about like I'm badass, but like everyone knows. Everyone knows. And then I would always find out like subtly for people who are not Filipino, when they're like, oh, here you go, boss. It's like, why'd that guy call me boss? Like, and I was like, is that because I remember my other Filipino, they would say that's a respect thing. Like, oh yeah, boss, let's do that. Like that's a respect thing, but it was a Filipino side. I was like, does that guy know the Filipino lingo too? He's like, he just knows I'm Filipino.
Yeah.
And I always enjoyed that. But I always loved being Filipino because in a way it's like you can make whatever you want of it.
Yeah.
So I never thought of myself of like, this is what Filipinos are supposed to be.
Yeah.
Because like I find Filipinos everywhere. I find a Filipino in Metallica. I find a Filipino in boxing. I find a Filipino in pro wrestling. It's like they're and they're not trying to take over. You know what I mean? We're just showing we want everything to go well. and it's really great. I remember one of the coolest things was after I this is jumping again way ahead
No
in
worries.
college. Um, we'll say about one of the actors that I worked with. His name was Tony, and he was Italian, and we were doing a fight sequence, right? And after I was like all into it. I was like, yeah, this is it. This is how we're gonna do it. After we were done, he was like, "You're Filipino, aren't you?" He's like, "How'd you know I'm Filipino?" It's because like all the Filipinos I know, like they're nice, but then underneath they got that action in them. You know what I mean? They give the guys a happy smile, but you don't want to mess with them. Don't mess with the nice guy because he can take care of himself. And I was like, dude, that's so cool, man.
Yeah.
I always thought that was awesome. He's like, yeah, you guys are so welcoming and nice, but don't mess with you guys because you can back it up. And I always felt like that's cool.
Yeah.
Because there's that mystery, but then there's also that part of like, oh, it's so awesome. The people who know who the Filipinos are, there's a respect there.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome.
I love it. So pretty good upbringing in regards to who you are, and really didn't encounter too many issues at all, or at least not.
Oh hell yeah, dude.
We'll get into that. We'll get into that.
Okay.
So you discovered who you are within this time frame, and it was a healthy appreciation, nothing negative at the moment, or
no,
didn't come across.
It was just
right.
it was accepted. It was like
Love that.
Going to church every day. Because what was bad about it? It's like, oh, Filipino is my family. That's my family,
Yeah. Sweet.
I mean, I knew
any embarrassment with like the foods. Yeah, have you ever seen the debut with Dante Bosco?
No, I haven't.
Oh my god, bro!
We've been talking about that. I wanted to make that.
I gotta have a Filipino film day with you and introduce you to a bunch of films about the Filipino American experience.
Show me the good one.
Because as you and I, that's kind of what brought us together. We're both Filipino filmmakers, actors. I want to tell the East Coast.
I'm not an actor.
Well, but I'm
a performer.
I want to tell the East Coast Filipino, because I don't think there's enough Philippine American stories that showcase the East Coast experience. There's a lot. Most of the people that are Filipino American stories that we have on film are all West Coast based.
Yeah.
And
no one wants to talk about.
That's a whole other sidebar conversation.
No one wants to talk about the New Jersey Filipinos. No one wants to talk about the Norfolk Filipinos. Right?
I think there's so many stories in there that
Virginia Beach Filipinos, right?
Dude, Anyway, so all right, I'm getting sidetracked. You're getting me sidetracked. We're 1 through 10. We're finding out our love for music. We're finding out our love for comic books. You started watching cartoons, TMNT, wrestling. Is this when
like
you got
basketball? Basketball, the Filipino thing.
Yeah, we talked, a little bit of the Filipino touches there. We're now going into school. We're now a little bit older. We're kind of figuring out what we want to do. We're getting professional training. We're becoming educated. Tell me about the school years as we get into school, middle school, high school, and finding out, hey, I got to figure out my plans for the future. What did Joe back at that time want to be?
What's funny is that we speak about friends. Is that when I think about the friends I had in the past, I never really had a lot of Filipino friends. I never was like in the, how it is in high school.
You had the UN of friends, which is same kind of deal. I grew up as a military kid. There wasn't a lot of Filipinos. I was the Filipino kid in my UN circle,
Yeah. But then in high school, you start seeing those. Like, yes. This is the Koreans, or, these are the groups. The cliques start happening. And I still never had the Filipino circle. Dude.
I hear you.
Wait, what was the question? Repeat that question.
When you got into, we're now in school, we're getting educated, we're learning more about ourselves, we're, maturing. What were some of the things that you aspired at that point? Obviously you were making money selling tapes. What did you want to do as you became educated? When did you okay, I want to be a musician? Did you get your guitar back then in school? Like, okay, I want to be a musician, or, oh, I love comic books. I want to start drawing. Tell me where some of the career aspirations, and as you started getting education, like clubs you started taking. Tell me about the education of, the miseducation of Lauryn Hill. I want to know the education of Joe Carabeo up until we get to college.
So 2 things was happening. I was in elementary school. I was reading comics, watching cartoons. But one of the first things I remember asking my mom was, this. After school, can you buy me some rollerblades or can you buy me a drum set? No
And
to the
why?
rollerblades.
What made you interested in those things?
I like thinking back at it now, I have no clue why I wanted rollerblades. I think that might have been just a 90s thing. You see the commercials and
American Gladiators,
yeah, all that stuff. But drums was a thing. Was I don't know that it just I was always drumming. That just sort of clicked in there. Can I have a drum set? No. Well, because
Was
you
it
got
music that got you into that? Was it because you were seeing like these hair metal bands?
well, also my
what got you
cousin
into
had
drumming?
drums. My cousin Mike had drums in their house.
Okay.
Maybe in my head, I was like, okay, cool, that's the instrument. They had a band. Their family had my Mike and his brothers had a band. So he introduced me to music, and I was like, can I have drums? No, you can't have drums. I was like, okay, well, then elementary school started having band, and like, well, you can join the percussion there. Okay, cool. And at the same time, my dad, I'm going to CCD, like the church school, and they have their basketball team. My dad was like, if you join basketball, I can also be the assistant coach. So I was really big in playing basketball during that time. You know what I mean?
I cannot picture you as an athlete. No disrespect.
Athlete?
Really, Joe Carabeo playing ball?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So elementary school through ninth grade, I played a lot of basketball. And I was a forward, and I was pretty rough. I was forward and a guard. Because my dad played basketball in Philippines, the whole family. So it was big. So we had a basketball hoop. He was always not pushing, but we'd always play that. I'd watch NBA. This is the Jordan.
Who's your favorite team back in the day, and who was your favorite player?
Who's my favorite player?
Who was your team back then, and your favorite player back then?
I mean, obviously, this is the Michael Jordan era.
Okay, so you're Jordan
Bulls guy. I mean, Ewing and Knicks, those are all cool. This was the golden age, man. This is the real golden age.
Well, I'm thinking Joe Carabeo. I'm thinking you're probably a pissing guy, the Bad Boys, Bill Laimbeer, Dennis Rodman shit.
Rodman was the late 90s though. That's high school time.
Well, he was Pistons, then he went to the Bulls, and
yeah. This is the early time. This is the early Dream Team era. With Magic Johnson, all that stuff.
Because I was a Magic guy.
Yeah, so I was really into that. So we'd interject that into that, and we were really into playing CYO basketball, and it was like war to us, man. It was great. I love that because Filipinos are really into basketball too.
I played Filipino League basketball too in high school, bro.
So I would go, play basketball, go to the comic book store, right? But I was playing drums and I was playing percussion in the elementary school in that band. So I was doing that, and I was drawing as well as trying to draw at that time in elementary school. So I was doing all these things in elementary school, and one of my it's one of those had to leave, right? The sooner or later they all collide. But yeah, at one point I wanted to play basketball, but you know what? I was not tall enough. At one time I wanted to play drums. Can't have drums there. Percussion, I did percussion in the school. That's as far as we go. But I didn't want to play band in high school, so I stopped that. I was drawing, but I didn't feel like I was as good at being an artist.
Who are you mimicking? Who would you say your style
Jim
was?
Lee, man.
Jim Lee?
Jim Lee. I'd probably blame. I guarantee you, if I didn't want to try to be Jim Lee, I'd probably be a comic book artist at this point.
Right? Because Jim Lee was so hard to idolize and try to emulate the style, bro.
I did not know. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
I thought you had to have. I mean, Austin McFarlane was out at that time, so you had to have 1,000 pointless lines.
Shit, right. Hell yeah. We were all mimicking the Image guys, bro.
That's that era.
Yeah,
because that's the time. I think that was that time where they all left and they started Image. Yep. During that time, you know what I mean? For X-Men #1 era. I feel so fortunate to be alive in that time of comics.
Agreed.
Like the death of Superman, not the death, but the breaking of Batman's back. You know what I mean? Age of Apocalypse. Like the Executioner song. Like pulling out all the adamantium from Wolverine. You know what I mean? Jason, what's his name?
Our comics weren't worth shit in that time period because it was so multi-printed, but it's a classic time period.
I remember on television, what's it called? Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles is going from dark to Saturday morning, like super light. And I'm like, what is this, dude? And that's why when I went to Batman the Animated Series, like, dude, this is real. This is serious. This is cinema. And I tried to show this has always been the gauge if it's cool or not or something like that. I had to show my dad. And if he did not fall asleep, it was good. And he didn't fall asleep. And I was like, all right, Batman the Animated Series. This stuff is good stuff. It really got into my blood, man.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Really, it opened my mind because like that was the first time I ever saw the behind the scenes of how to make something. Because I watched the behind the scenes of the Mask of the Phantasm. And I was like, oh man, they're drawing. They used black paper to do the backgrounds. And I saw that in my head. And at that point, I was like, I think I can draw like that. I can't draw like freaking Jim Lee and have abs or draw Layfield and have 1,000 teeth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Like that Batman animated series style, I can connect with. So I stuck with that. And I didn't know it at the time, but Batman the Animated Series, that was film noir. And later on in the future, when I went into like what type of films I wanted to make, that was the only thing that clicked in my head was film noir Batman the Animated Series. Sorry, that was another tangent.
No worries. So these are the things that helped influence later on, which is key to your story. So you didn't become a drummer, you didn't continue basketball. So then what were the things that you were aspiring to be at that time? So you were penciling, but you didn't all the way pursue that. So what were the career aspirations in high school? Let's go there. So, you know, and then I also want to find out how backyard wrestling came into place. When did you first say you want to become a filmmaker in that realm? Let's get into this.
They all make time. It is so cool in my head because they all are such contrasting things, man. 7th grade. I'm already I love pro wrestling. I was already watching pro wrestling every single day. Who else is watching pro wrestling? I do not know. 7th grade, the first week, what's going on? No clue. Gym class, all of a sudden I see a guy like like an Indian kid go onto the tall crash pads and he tries to do a backflip off the top of it, but he falls and crashes down and he starts pointing to the sky. And I was like, who is that? You know, you're in high school now. We're like, what is this? And I found out like we're both in the same gym class. And we're all in the gym class, you know, you're in the locker room and I hear him and his friends talking about like Raw and wrestling and stuff like that. I was like, oh, they're into wrestling too. But I didn't like push myself into that. I was like, oh yeah, they're also into wrestling. So I got my other friends like, dude, that guy's into wrestling. And I think it just naturally, you know, when you're just talking about like someone's like, you know, you're in the locker room and you're just talking about it, all of a sudden it's like, yeah, dude, like you saw Raw too. That's cool. Yeah, dude, no, I'll do that. And lo and behold, that guy, that dude, his name was Ratish Bala. And you know him now probably in the future as Sanjay Dutt, one of the producers, and also worked for AEW and WWE and TNA and all that stuff. I met him the 7th grade, and that's the first thing I saw was him trying a moonsault and falling off, and like no
was the pointing trying to do the Sabu thing.
Yeah, he was Sabu. He was Sabu. Who's that? That's Sabu. And he introduced me to Sabu. And I was like, do you have, like, he's like, I have whole tapes. I was like, I have tapes too. So we started doing tape trades, dude. And he would show me, he's like, have you ever heard of ECW? It's like, what is ECW? And he would give me all these tapes. And we'd also, you know, trade other TV shows and stuff. You know, he was a big fan of Dawson's Creek too, man. So I was a big fan of Dawson's Creek. So that's awesome. But he would, yeah, that was later on. That was in 9th grade. But earlier that he would give me the tapes of pro wrestling. He would show me like, oh, because I used to watch NWA, WCW, stop for a few years, and then he reintroduced me back into that. And so we started doing that. We started just, you know, like being buds, watching, talking about wrestling because there's no one else at that time. It's weird, but in a sense, I loved it. But you go to high school, even in elementary school, I felt like everything I did everything that I liked was uncool. Comics, uncool. You know what I mean? Pro wrestling, uncool. You know what I mean? Like wanting to be a musician at that time, and I can't play, uncool. You like art, uncool.
Wow.
So what could I be? I could be a tough bully. That's what. That's what. Supposedly that was I was a tough kid who could draw, and everyone knew that I could do that. But yeah, that's how that was. But also, I remember I was still shy, and I wasn't really a good. I wouldn't even say I'm a good talker now, but I specifically remember, because in sixth grade we were supposed to give a book presentation on the book, like our first book report, and I read the novelization of Batman, Mask of the Phantasm, and we were supposed to go up there in front of the class and talk about the book. I told them like I read the like really shy. I was like I read Batman, Mask of the Phantasm, and then I just froze, and I was like, and I just walked off. I didn't do it. I was like I froze. I was a shy person. I really, from all of that until like maybe like my revenge, like up until that point was the only time I was like I need to take revenge on me being shy, because I was shy in speaking in front of the class because I have to do this. So in a way, the next book report we did, or report, I couldn't do the book one, the Mask of the Phantasm. The next one, I did a report on comic books. And I wanted to tell people how awesome comic books was. And I was like, I can talk about that. So I did that. I put all the books up against the wall behind me, and I somehow got the most confidence ever. I was like, these are comic books. And I just showed everyone how awesome they were. And of course, trying to be tough as I still attempt to be, the first thing I do is I open the book of maybe Prophet number 5. Do you remember that? It was Stephen Platt.
Stephen Platt,
it was the
man.
most highly super
ultra detail, high energy,
and
shit.
People are being blown up and stuff like that. And I was telling people, these are comic books, guys. It's not lame. This is like crazy stuff that's happening. Trying to show people in my 6th grade class how the comic books is the legit art form that everyone should be reading. You guys are watching Power Rangers. These are the real thing, dude.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's the moment where I slowly started breaking away from being shy and not talking about it. It was me talking about comics and why they're such a cool art form, and me wanting to be a penciler at that time. And then I wanted to do that, but then not college, but things start to break down when you really don't feel like you're good enough. You know what I mean? And I felt like that's what happened. I was doing basic technical drawing. There are so many better artists out there around me. And I think it was just so like whenever I would draw, it wasn't freaking Jim Lee.
Yeah.
That freaking Jim Lee, man.
We're not all Jim Lee, man, which was very hard to swallow.
I don't really like Jim Lee right now. Well, I appreciate Jim Lee. I appreciate it, but I don't really go out to buy Jim Lee stuff.
So you wanted to be a penciler here or there.
And I didn't feel like I was good enough to be a penciler. So I was like, okay, what else could I do? And then 9th grade, there was a photography class. And I was like, well,
when did photography come into your palette, Well,
my mom had a camera, a still camera. I remember her always doing that. And I was like, okay, cool. I can do that. I can get into that. And then, so then that became, I don't know, it was comfortable. Does that make sense? Like,
well, do you think because also comic books, to me, I think I credit comic books for also helping composite shots.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying?
Visualize.
Framing. Exactly. Cool. I think that's one of the best contributing factors of comic books to other forms of art.
Except I couldn't compose like Jim Lee. And my shots, that's impossible. But like it became cool. At my first photo class, rolling it up and doing all that, I was like, cool, it feels very comfortable being a photographer. And it started to make sense. My mom, that all that stuff makes sense. But then you know what happens? Freaking girls, man.
I want to get that into there. So did you take photography classes in high school and stuff? Like learn how to do film and all that?
Yeah.
So let's bring the women element into the picture. First crushes, how did that affect your dreams? And then obviously choosing your school. You're going to graduate. Where did you know? A lot of us get pushed. I don't know about you, and you'll let me know. But like, while we were great with art, right? We had skills, we had talents, and we could have pursued that scholarship. Um, it's also not where they want us to go. It's like art and entertainment is cool for fun, but it's not what they want us to see do as a job. They become a doctor, lawyer, engineer. What was that when we get to that time frame and choosing where you wanted to go? But let's get into the women. How did women or just just sexuality come into affecting your decisions as young men? As we do, right?
I mean, I don't know if I can say that sexuality got in the way, but a lot of it
In some
was,
respects, different people.
well, the romantic version is it became motivation, because
Exactly. That's a
it doesn't
very
matter.
important
It doesn't
thing.
matter. It like this is why all this stuff, whether like whether you're gay, straight, whatever you're into, this is why it doesn't matter. The
Exactly.
energy is still the same. Your motivation to get here, whether you like a guy or you like a girl, it doesn't. You know what I mean?
Oh
It's
yeah,
just
well said, brother.
it's the same
Exactly.
thing.
But that's why I want people to feel, that's how we relate. We whether late bloomers, we're fast kids or whatever, it all doesn't really fucking matter at the end of the day. All of our stories blossom however we choose to have it occur.
Yeah, but I remember like having like not girlfriends, real girlfriends, but I remember having like girlfriends like in elementary school. Like, oh yeah, we're friends, like stuff like that.
Oh yeah.
You're my boyfriend all the way up until there was always somewhat of a thing. Um, it didn't make me feel cool or anything like that. But I do remember like say like in my first photo class, like, I love photography, but then there was a girl in there that like I legit, that I had a crush on. And what's unique about having a crush and then having skills, I don't know, it's unique. It gives you a motivation to show up for class. You know what I mean? And it
Yeah.
gives you motivation to be better at the thing. You're like, well, I can't be the worst photographer in this class. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's also this distraction too, because it's like, I want to be good at this, but also, how am I going to talk to this girl after class? So it becomes this thing of like, you know what I mean? It's like, how do you piece it? How do you piece it together?
Oh yeah.
Um, but yeah, like, so in my first photo class, there was a girl that I had a crush on at that time, who I would classify as, because in electives, all grades sort of can go in there. So I was actually in a upper. She was I think, at a freshman. And
Also, you kind of brought yourself down because you just wanted to
well,
holla.
but she was also out, so to speak, looking down, looking at that tier. She was in the popular group of the lower grade, and I
Yeah.
was at like the mid card of the this grade. But
I
in
love
my
the
head,
analogy. I love the analogy.
but in my head, yeah, she was like the main event. She was the main event of NXT, but I'm on the mid card of AEW. Right? But so I was like, oh man, that's a challenge. How are we going to connect? Because it's still like, well, we're still in different worlds of communication.
Yeah.
But there was a lot of fun drama with that, because that's high school drama in a way is the best drama. Because that's why we have so many amazing stories of like, oh, are you going to talk to her? Like
Yeah.
every class is like, okay, I'm going to somehow talk to her after class. And then like it never really happens. You just let it go,
Yeah.
and then it's like, yeah, it was cool. Like it was again, it was like it was nothing I regret, because I did end up like asking her out like
Oh, okay.
before going to one of the classes,
Yeah.
but she had a boyfriend,
Yeah. That's always
and
what happens.
I was always reminded of like, well, if you would have asked like several months earlier.
And don't you fucking hate that? Like, god damn it. Yeah. Yeah. So I
No, but see,
feel
that's
that.
still in conjunction with being a photographer too,
Yeah.
because that's those connections. I always have that, because that
Yeah.
energy of like chasing your crush, though whatever happens, it's still such a cool energy of chasing
Agreed.
something.
It's beautiful, man. So that element came into it. Let's get into graduating because I want to get to school and I also want to know the start of we touched upon it a little bit with the meeting Sanjay Dutt. When did we become a backyard wrestler? Where does that start? I want to get to graduating and choosing when you go before you go out to VCU, which Virginia Commonwealth that we touched upon way when we started talking.
There's so much story.
Let's graduate. Let's graduate from high school, and then let's get to backyard. And then
can't graduate yet, Patrick. We can't. There's so much story left in high school.
Well, let's go.
You remember this? This is the time where WWF at the time, the Attitude Era was at its highest point. And if you remember at the very beginning, there's a reason why they say don't try this at home. Because there's a revolution happening at home where these kids were filming themselves, putting on their own matches, and doing the craziest things you could ever think of, right?
So did you see that through tapes? When did you get introduced to that?
No, we started that.
So this is okay. All right. So tell me when the wild hair started picking up. You're friends with Sanjay. You met him. You're fans of this medium. Hey, Sanjay, come on to the house. Let's do this.
Freshman year, sir. We're watching. Maybe it might have been freshman year. We're watching. I forget where I was at Sanjay's house. We will call him Sanjay for now. we're at Sanjay's house. He has this wall of tapes, and we're just watching matches. And I already have a camera because my parents have a camera and stuff like that. His dad have a camera, and he was like, we were like, we could just do this. Because you know what happened? We were walking back behind the school one day and they left their crash pad out. Right? And then we just started doing moves. Because we're on the mat. Let's just do moves on the mat. Cool. All right. Go back and hey, we're watching the tapes. We have cameras and we're just like, let's just film our own matches, right? It's like, yeah, I got a camera. Want to do it? We'll practice stuff. We'll do that. And legit, it just every weekend it built. They started, Sanjay and his friends started doing their own thing. And he's like, Joe, you want to get down with this? We need a camera operator. We need a camera operator. I know you could, you film too, because you're doing photo and you film. Yeah, let me camera operate. So I started filming them doing their matches because they had bigger dudes, bigger guys. We're not. You could already tell Sanjay and I are not the biggest. I'm Sanjay's height.
Yeah.
We're not the biggest guys, but he had other guys, Francisco, Jeremy, all of them, and they were practicing doing moves because they would always do moves on Sanjay. They're like, oh, yeah, Sanjay's always willing to do all these moves. All right, let's do these matches. Joe, let's film it. Okay, cool. And then it just started snowballing, man. It just started being like, all right, because I was like, okay, I can direct this and put this together. And he was like, I trust you with the camera. Because whenever I put in this dude's camera, it looks like crap. But when I put the camera in your hand, it looks great. And I was like, well, do you want to do a match? I can do a match too. So we started plotting this and then just rotating this dude. All right, now you film. Well, I just went through a match. Yeah, we need someone to film, dude.
Yeah.
And, we're just out there on our starter jackets, and stuff like that. And what happened was, the tape trade is happening, so the internet is there at that time, the small bit of internet, and Sanjay would speak to these guys in Omaha, and they're doing their matches too, and filming it, and we end up trading this, and they're like, let's start our own federation that's a conglomerate of both of those, and they call it the NWWA, the New Wave Wrestling Alliance. And so there we had it. It was the tape trade, and we had two territories together, two different places sharing the same website, and you can watch our matches on there. And then what was cool too, this is whatever, 96 or 97, and had a website, and we would put on, we were like, well, we need to have characters, and what's funny is that we didn't get a chance to make up our own characters because the guys in Omaha already had the names, And they're like, well, you just choose these names because we can't design something else, dude. It's like, we don't care what it is. Like, we have this Lord Lantis. Okay, I'll take Lord Lantis. Nightmare. Like, all right, Sanjay, take Nightmare. Like, we didn't want these names. Just because they already had placeholders on the website.
Wow.
It's like, okay, take that. And it was cool. So we started building off of these. I was like, we need entrance music. And we just play entrance music off a boombox. They would just plant it. Remember, we also had to play, someone had to press the button behind the stage too. And we were wrestling at the school. We weren't in our backyard. So we were never backyard wrestlers per se. We were wrestling. There had 2 C trains like on the field next to the tennis court. In between, there was an opening. And we saw that. It's like, that's our ring area, dude. Entrance way this way, this way. You can even jump off the C trains. And we had our stolen mats. No, we did. And so we would do that, and we would do the tape trade, right? And we would post it on the website, have the matches, and we were like, we need to film promos because that's what you do. We need to do that. And I was like, I can direct your promos. We could film it. So this is the part where it got real, Patrick. The matches were awesome. I love doing the matches, but for me, when we got into the promo mode, and let's take in consideration, at this time, this is when Tom Green was huge. So we had a mixture of that. We had like, we could just film our promos anywhere. So we would do like promos in the school hallway. It's like, all right, I got the camera here. Do like, all right, Sanjay, you're doing a promo here, and all of a sudden through the crowd, like Fernando comes in and jumps you, and you guys are fighting in the hallway. And like all the people and everyone thinks it's a real fight. So we're pulling these stunts throughout town. We're filming everywhere in the town. I was like, dude, we're just jumping in. And like Blair Witch Project just came out, so I'm all inspired by like Blair Witch Project. Like, dude, we can make it like a horror movie up to this match.
Wow.
All these things being, it's like it was just huge to be able to do that. And then we would start inviting people to watch it live while we were filming, so live tapings.
That's so cool.
It was cool. We would call the news, and the news did articles on us. Our biggest claim to fame for the NWWA was we got in, or we were part of the Best of Backyard Wrestling Volume 1 and 2. Me and Sanjay Dutt, our matches are featured on the cover and throughout each one of the DVDs, and they were advertised during the commercial breaks of Howard Stern. Yeah. So it would see like Girls Gone Wild, and then you see Best of Backyard Wrestling side by side.
Yeah, I remember it really well, man. It's so crazy
and
to know you as a friend are one of those people that I was digging in my military days. I was in the Navy, remembering seeing all that stuff and ordering it. Matter of fact, next time you come, man, I have to have you sign mine, man. That's so fucking crazy. What did your parents think about this when they heard you were doing this?
They loved me not doing drugs. That was
so always, as long as you weren't doing drugs,
that was always
they were okay
our
with
thing.
This.
That was always our thing. Even when we did news on, like when we're doing the news, and they're like, "What do our parents think about this?" And we'd always say, like, "Well, what would you rather your kids doing? Doing fake fighting and hurting themselves and making stories, or out being in a gang and taking drugs?" Because instead of doing that, we were there and we were thinking of storylines. We were thinking of angles. We were being creative.
Hell yeah.
You know what I mean? We were being creative, and we were working as a team. And also, another sense, we were all different nationalities. We were all different places.
Yeah.
Personal drama and stuff like that always happens when it comes to entities and anything like that. But like for that prime time, we were always doing that stuff. And we did that all the way until we graduated.
That's so cool, dude.
It was so much so that during our graduation dance, like we all did like walking up to the because we graduated on like the high school field. Walking up to the field, I ran like out of the line. I ran out of the line onto a fence and did a moonsault, and then walked right back online. And then also Sanjay Dutt did the same exact thing. I was like, we're still in this thing.
Hell yeah. All right, that's fucking dope. I always was curious about that story, so thank you for sharing that, brother. So with all of that, you're wrestling. We're wanting to be a comic artist, but we're graduating. what did you want to do? Where did you want to go? But then also did it seems like you were saying your parents have always been as long as you're not doing drugs, you're staying healthy and wise and you're doing what you want to do. It seemed like they're for it. So tell me, making that decision of where you wanted to go to school, that we obviously know, as we said earlier, it ended up being Virginia Commonwealth. But what were the aspirations? Was that your first choice? And what did you want to do and go major?
Well, it's unique because like after that point, like, again, I was like, maybe I'm not, photography is maybe, is there more? Because then I started filming and directing that. I was like, now I want to be, and then of course, Dawson Creek comes out. And I was like, oh man, it romanticized filmmaking so much. And I loved telling this story, but it did motivate me. Like, I want to do that.
I didn't know Dawson's Creek was such a inspiration for you. Interesting.
Well, it's almost these awakenings.
Yeah.
Because just like with Batman animated series, you watch it behind the scenes, you're like, oh, someone draws that. Before, I was like, I didn't know that was a thing to make movies, but then I watched that, it's like, oh man, like that, everything comes into doing that. And I just felt that. That's why I loved filming and producing those pro wrestling shows, because I was making movies to me, holding the camera and doing all that. That was those steps, because we didn't have a film program in my school. I had to go off school to a television production class in Fairfax Academy to actually do the closest thing to film class. I never took any film class in high school. I did my own stuff. Wow. Every step of the way. So my film class was making stuff every week with my friends.
And that's the best, I think, way to learn, man.
I have great memories of that. I had so many injuries, but like it tells you how strong you can be and what motivates you too. And yeah, so learning with like, oh, Dawson's Creek, that's the filmmaking part. Oh, the pro wrestling, best of backyard wrestling. We even wrestled in front of the whole school. Like there was a thing called like Mr. Lake Braddock, I think, and Sanjay was up for one of those, and for his special skill, we put on a match in front of the whole entire school. That was awesome.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but then eventually you have to graduate and then make a choice. Sanjay, pro wrestling. I did not take the SATs. So I was in that limbo land of what exactly I really wanted to do. And I was still taking part of television production. And they said, you can still take it another year and you can become an assistant teacher for that and teach everyone. So I was like, okay, I'll do that while going to Northern Virginia going to Nova to figure out what I want to do. And I was like, oh, there's no film program. Where's the closest place to the film program? I don't want to go to Screen Gems to North Carolina to do that. What's the closest thing? I saw that VCU had a film program. George Mason wasn't an option for me because I had to leave. There's that point where, like, for me, like, everyone else left. Everyone
you want to get out the area because it was still too close to home.
It didn't feel like I was growing.
Yeah, agreed.
I need to go out and do something. And well, I can't. I didn't take the SATs. Not saying that my parents didn't motivate me to, but they did. They let you do what you want to do. And that's a tough thing because you have to realize what is doing what you want to do. And yeah. I realized, okay, I can take a certain amount of credits at Nova, and hopefully that'll transfer over to pass out of Art Foundation and VCU, so I can do that. And Carolyn was over there, and she was my girlfriend, and I was like, I want to go over there, but that's again motivation. What I mean?
Did you meet Carolyn in high school?
Yeah, met Carolyn in high school.
Okay. High school sweetheart. Love it.
That's right. Our first date is actually our anniversary of our wedding too. So
oh, that's so beautiful.
It all lines up into that.
I love that.
So yeah, like she left. All my friends left to go to college. I was stuck here at Northern Virginia, and I was like, well, I gotta do something, man. You know what I mean? So I stuck with the working professionally at the studio that Fairfax Academy did. But then I was still doing drawing, and I was actually still doing photography because that's another thing that would cross over because those were classes that you do in VCU. And then, so I worked hard doing that. I think I worked super hard because now you're paying for your class.
Yeah.
And for me, I'm paying for my class.
So
You know what I
obviously,
mean?
I'm gonna focus a lot more because I don't want to
Yeah,
waste my money.
exactly.
Yeah,
I'm like, when can I cancel out so I don't have to pay for this credit?
yeah.
It got serious. It got serious at that point because I felt like I can still do that, but I still wasn't doing film production yet. But I was doing photography. Everyone left, but I was being somehow I became an award-winning photographer up in Nova. They chose my photo work to be selected for them, so I was like really motivated to do all that.
Awesome.
So 2 years go by, and I was able to transfer over to VCU. So I started doing the film program over there. I was only one of three people that was into that new program. And so I was one of three, and I was showing my photo work to the professors over there of doing that. And then he was like, "Your photo work is garbage." I was like, "No."
Whoa. Yeah.
I was like, "Welcome to college. Your work is junk." Then how did I get in, dude?
Yeah. Yeah.
Your film work got you in, Joe.
They break you down to build you up.
But it was motivation again. It was like,
Yeah.
I don't suck. I can do this.
Yeah.
So I was working hard to be great at photography, but then the film production side, lo and behold, all the stuff I was teaching at the Fairfax Academy with all the gear, because the Fairfax Academy was great because they taught you the cameras, they taught you nonlinear editing, they taught you about the tripod, they taught you all the stuff, lighting and everything. I go to VCU starting from ground zero. Not only that, but I felt like the teachers did not know as much as I already was teaching.
Ooh.
What are we doing? We're just BS talking about films in class. I was like, that's cool. Well, I could talk about films in my class all day long. Day one of my one of my classes, we're done with the class. I turned to my left. I turned that to the guy next to me. It's like, is this all we're gonna do? Is we're just gonna BS and talk about classes or talk about movies? It's like I can do that on my own time. He's like, yeah, this sort of sucks. And I was like, I have a camera. You want to go film something? He's like, yeah. That dude, his name is Brian Sarvis. And to this day, he's still one of my best friends ever. And we still make and work in film production today. Since day one of VCU. Turn to him.
Oh,
That day, we made a film.
love
That
it.
day, we went and I was like, dude, let's film a chase scene. You and me, you're chasing. And I knew how to do the camera angles. You and me, let's film being chased through the hallway, all that, and end with me being hit by a car because I'm a freaking pro wrestler. And we
I love
filmed that
that, man.
the very first day. The very first day, I was like, this class isn't giving me what I needed. Let's go film our own. It motivated me to do it on our own. And that's what living in the city gave you. It wouldn't have looked and wouldn't have been as cool if I was like in Virginia Tech where they just have hills or whatever. But being in the city, in Richmond, this grimy ass, dirty, trouble city, these locations look cool. So yeah, this filmmaking jumped off there. And then even the first week, I was in the computer lab. One of the guys kept on looking at me. He's like, "I've seen you from somewhere." It's like, "Are you from the Best of Backyard Wrestling Volume 1?" I was like, "Yeah, that's me, dude."
Wow. Hell yeah. It comes full circle.
He's like, "What are you doing here?" It's like, "I'm in film school, dude. This is
Yeah.
what I do."
All right, I love it because we now kind of brings us to when we started, and then Virginia Commonwealth University. So we're in this mix. I want to know a couple things, so, some real key points with all of this, and we're graduating, and now to where we're at here with you now.
Oh, did I
But what do
meet
you
a
think?
Filipino? I did meet one Filipino.
Well, the Filipino
It's
mix is
great.
in there. We had the
It's
Filipino
a
stuff in
great
there,
story. It's
and
a great story.
your story is the Filipino story. We can get that in a second, brother. And because also the Filipino experience is not, you cannot put labels on it. It's whatever. What you just lived and what you've explained so far is the Filipino experience. It doesn't have to be stereotypical or anything else like that. This is our experience because we are fucking Filipino. So let's get that out there. What I want to know, because as you just kind of illustrated, which I really like and what I appreciate is like you learned all this equipment at this sidebar Fairfax school. Here you are at like, okay, quote unquote university now, but then it's just there's a different take on it, a serious note. What do you think was the most important lesson you learned on your own, and then the most important lesson you learned from schooling? Because I want to just illustrate how we can learn so many important life lessons that doesn't have to go on that construct that the society makes us, oh, you have to go to school to learn something. No, you fucking know, because you learned it over here, but also you learned something even more outside of that because you were doing shit on your own backyard fucking wrestling, learning how to create film shit. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't have to be professional school type shit, if you feel me.
One of the biggest things I learned, right?
Let's go.
I don't know if this is the biggest thing, but one of the most important things that I learned.
You would tell your child when they grow up,
dude, if you love it, you gotta find any way you can to do it for the rest of your life. You know, that's the main thing. It's no secret. You know, I loved, and you'll realize it. There are jobs that you are in. There are jobs you do that you're like, this is not where I want to be right now. And you finish it and you hopefully do something else. But a bigger thing that I like to tell people is that no matter what you do, find the one thing that you love about it that motivates you to keep on going. You know what I mean? Because there's a moment where even in film production where I'm like, this sucks. I almost died. You know what I mean? But there has to be a little bit of thing that you can do. I mean, it's you have to sort of motivate yourself, man. It's no one. Even I would tell this to people in college. Like when I give workshops, in last workshop I told VCU students, I was like, listen, once you're out of VCU, you're not going to have this bubble. You're going to be out of the bubble. You know what I mean? So you got to get used to like being able to do these things on your own. Like how Patrick does it on his own. Because what's going to happen is, and Kevin Smith says this too, is that people don't want to jump on your train before it starts. They only want to jump on your train once it's already started. You know what I mean? And I've noticed that. No one's ever like, you know, like, when are you going to start your new thing? I'm gonna jump. A lot of times they're like, oh, they're really only going to jump on it once it's already started going, once they got to catch up. I don't know, man. That's the most important thing is the discipline. It's the wake up, get your work done. I know that sounds really lame, but it's true, dude. I've woken up every single, like a lot of times when I first started doing this professionally, I'd wake up like, I don't want to do this. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. I don't care where the shoot is. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. And you have to motivate yourself to get out there, and you have to learn that half the battle is showing up. You have to show up. If you don't show up, you're not going to get anything done. And I think that's the main thing. I learned that too with backyard wrestling. There have been times where we had other people that said they said they can do it. They didn't show up. You know what I mean? It's the same thing with the film festival. Like, I'll show a film, they don't. They're like, I couldn't get it done. It's like, you just show up, get it done. I mean, it sounds so lame because maybe there's a mental health issue thing that can happen too. Maybe they have stuff going on. But I always learned that every single day you have to take some sort of step forward, whether it's small or big, or small, big, but you just got to keep pushing forward.
Well said, brother. No, I completely agree. A lot of people have dreams, but they don't take the step forward to make that dream a reality. So you got to.
Everyone has an idea, forward. Patrick. Everyone has an idea. How many times? How many times someone's like, "I have an idea. I want to do this. Cool, do it.
Yeah,
do it.
Definitely.
Like, what does that mean? Do it, right? You find the way to do it. That's what's the craziest thing about filmmaking is we are making miracles. Like every step of the way you make a movie, like. Sometimes you realize, like, does the universe not want me to make this movie? Is everything bad happening?
Completely agree. Who would you say, if I would, I'm gonna throw, because you have so many different interests, you're super talented in so many different things. I'm curious real quick if you could tell me your biggest inspiration in each of these. So photography, who's a photographer that inspires you, and with when you shoot with your eye? Just really trying to get quickly into the mind of Joe Carabeo. Who are some of your influences? Photography.
I mean, photography wise, I've always quoted for my photo style. I've loved, I think it's Arnold Eve, but I always quote Ellen von Unworth has been a massive influence for the way I shoot my photography. Because even though she exists in the state of glamour, she's a former model turned into a photographer. but the way she's able to capture those sporadic moments, and the energy is also captured in how she processes and the lens choices, how it's the image is less about, though technique is there, the image exists beyond technique, beyond it is like this perfect captured moment. And since it's in glam style photography, she always has these awesome, beautiful women, you know what I mean? And images, colors popping, and like it's all that stuff. Some people would say David LaChapelle, but I appreciate David LaChapelle, but he didn't inspire me as much as how Ellen von Unworth is like so in the moment of everything. And that was a big inspiration for my photography work.
I love that. I like getting this type of stuff because it makes me want to dive in and learn more to get inspired of these people because we all have different influences. So, creative writing.
That documentary side, because I did do lots of filming documentaries. I held the camera all the time, so I felt like that's the way to get the best image is not forcing person up. It's not don't force a person to pose. You know, don't like this is what you must do now. Lift your eyebrow and turn right. I've witnessed that, and I can see how you don't get that image. I love getting the point of like you don't really realize we're shooting, but we're shooting. We're having a conversation. You know what I mean? Where you fail to realize that I've picked up the camera like every 5 moments and we're having a conversation about pro wrestling. Boom, boom, yeah, The Rock, blah, 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 boom, boom, boom. All right, just lift your hand. Boom, boom, boom. Oh yeah, that's cool. Like being in the moment, being in the energy it produces images that
are natural.
Yeah, natural. Yeah. But also it's like part of that is also that those images, and then what images do I choose to release is also crucial too.
Oh yeah.
So it's getting those images and then realizing that one, you know, that one doesn't even feel like I shot it, and that one doesn't even feel like you, but it feels like this moment that is amazing. That's the one. It exists beyond. That's what I think.
I love that. I love that. And it's
I used to tell Angie, I used to tell the burlesque dancer Angie Pontani is like, if you don't look good, I don't look good, and I want to look good. Okay, so my goal is to make sure you look good, so I look good.
Hell yeah! Creative writing. Who are some of your influences there?
Oh my god, so many right now.
Just throw a few.
Obviously, David Lapham, Grant Morrison are massive influences. Ed Brubaker is a massive influence.
So a lot of comic people. Any other novelists outside of that, or
I never really read novels.
Okay. Or even screenwriting. Some of your favorite, screenwriters from film.
I mean, I still enjoy Joss Whedon. Okay. I still love the take, and also his team, the Marty Noxon, the David Greenwalt. I mean, a lot of TV writers. I love Breaking Bad. This was now Vince Gilligan, Virginia native Vince Gilligan.
Okay.
I love that. I mean, those guys I always loved.
All right, directing.
I always have that triad, man, of like Martin Scorsese. The Coen brothers are number one. Coen brothers are always number one. Martin Scorsese, and then that's always that tricky part. But Coen brothers are, I swear by that so much. Every film the Coen brothers, that's all me. Martin Scorsese is such a rebel in his own way. I mean, come on.
All right, penciling.
Sam Raimi. That's what Coen brothers, Martin Scorsese, Sam Raimi.
Illustrating, penciling, illustrating.
Right now, Paul Pope is always a big hero of mine. If you can see this whole, actually back there, he's a big Paul Pope. Because I've realized this is what I did. This is what happened. I tried to give up drawing like being precise like the Jim Lee, and I had to try to find what was something more fluid, because you're so restricted in that. It's like I need to break it up. What seemed most challenging, and I found that a lot of these other artists were using a brush pen. We're using brushes from the Japanese style. So I was looking at that. I was like, I saw the David Max, I saw even the Darwin Cooks. You know what I mean? I love Mike Allred. There's like these things, and Paul Pope with his style. Those guys are so great, man. There's such a list of that. Darwin Cook, I freaking love so much of that. Tim Sale. Tim Sale is a massive.
Yes, Tim Sale,
Tim
bro.
Sale is a massive. All
The
the books
simplicity
Tim Sale
of
has
what
over here, dude. All
we
this
grew
Tim
up with so
Sale
much
is-
ultra detail because of the Image Days and
Tim
the John
Sale.
Buscema's, the technical shit. That when you found the simplistic artists and the independent stuff, it really opens your eyes, you know.
Tim
And
Sale. let me
much love
get
to the
this.
independents, bro.
Tim Sale was such a big influence on both my filmmaking and
Hell
wanting to
yeah.
draw. It's like I have a documentary. A documentary was done on me where basically it followed me going to a like like what's your day to day of like inspiration, right? And I literally was like, let's go to the comic book store and I'll show you what's the one of my biggest inspirations for this. And I went there and I showed him Tim Sale. I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
wow, Halloween, all this stuff means so much to me because during that time, it's like, oh yeah, you got the what is this? The Paul Pope solo. I have these awesome books.
Nah, bro, those are
By
classics.
myself with more Tim Sale,
Definitely, dude.
all this. So yeah. Oh yeah, another one. Come on. One day I'm doing this thing. One day, if they give me a chance, Miracle Man is mine.
We're gonna get into those questions too. Those are some of the questions I had as well, real quick, that I wanted to throw on you.
Did you ever read Miracle Man?
Yes. Not all of it, but I read a few.
Dude,
Alan Moore, man, Alan Moore.
or like they say here, what is it they have? I don't know if they have it listed. The original writer.
All right. So, well,
Alan
you know
Moore.
what? You already kind of brought that up.
Alan Moore's another big influence on writing too. I can't write like him, but the way I actually found a lot of stuff that inspired my filmmaking through Alan Moore, the way he paces his comics.
Yeah. I dig it. All right. So you kind of brought that up a second ago with you showing us Miracle Man. Dream IP to work on. Miracle Man.
Yeah, obviously Miracle Man. And this may sound really, really ridiculous, and I'm still going to push for this so hard, is that I really, really, really want to write and do and make Roxy Rocket. You know who Roxy Rocket is? Yeah, you do.
Your own creation, right?
No, you talk about my Dream IP?
Yeah, I know you. Well, Dream IP you want to work on, but I also know you have the Rocket stuff. I know you with your own IP creations.
Oh, what's my?
I guess I'm confusing your own IPs with Roxy.
Let me see if I have one here.
Familiarize me real quick, man. I guess I'm getting lost.
Well, we obviously have Black Magic Tales.
Yes,
is the greatest book I've written. It's those. I love those books. Is that the question?
And we're gonna have to do another episode because of time right now. We're going on 2 hours, so we definitely need to go back and have another Joe Carabeo episode over food, and I want to touch upon all of the other aspects of Joe Carabeo and your other creations. But so for like right now, Dream IP to work on, and then or other IPs. And you said Roxy Rocket. So I'm not mistaken, is your own or is somebody else's? I'm confused.
Roxy Rocket is a Batman villain.
Oh, I guess I'm confused. I guess I'm not. It's not ringing a bell right now.
Hold on one second.
You have it, or you have something that's gonna bring it to us right now.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Roxy Rocket. I don't know if you focus on this.
There it is.
This is, if you look at the episode of Batman the Animated Series called Ultimate Thrill, this is the character from Ultimate Thrill. She is, in my opinion, a super untapped character in the DC universe. She is a thrill-seeking thief that exists in the DC world. If anything, I wonder if I can grab this. Hold on. This is exclusive, Patrick.
Hey, let's go.
So, if I ever write Roxy Rocket for DC Comics, I would like David Lapham to illustrate. I commissioned David Lapham to do an Amy Racecar and Roxy Rocket team up on this illustration, because those are two of my favorite characters of all time.
That
As you
looks
can
super
tell
sweet,
from
dude.
the stories I write, is Amy Racecar from David Lapham's Stray Bullets and Roxy Rocket from Batman the Animated Series. Great character. I love those characters. I have a whole story planned out for Roxy Rocket. I would love to create Roxy Rocket. I'd love to. She doesn't have a series, dude. She
How did
has
that
no
become such a
series.
fave of yours?
What's that?
Why do you think it became such a fave? Tell me, make me become addicted to Roxy. Why is it so cool that it became such a fave of yours?
Well, for one thing, I love, everyone. I love those Bonnie and Clyde type thieves, right? And I love the fact that like Roxy has she's just this ultimate thrill seeker, and that's the whole entire point. She's not really trying to. She's stealing for the sake of. And there's also this, there's this also there's a sexiness to it that I think is really cool. That she's pulling like I don't know how to best describe it. I mean, obviously I don't know where I put it. She's riding a rocket. It's that ass character.
Yeah.
It's a hard thing, but what's really cool is you can also do this weird film noir aesthetic of her because she used to be a Hollywood stunt girl and then she turned to crime. Because like she couldn't because her stunts were too she would take stunts too far.
Wow.
And then she wanted to take those stunts and go into crime. And I was like, that's so cool. You know what I mean? In a way
Yeah.
it's like sort of like, like Firefly. Remember Firefly, or I think it's Firefly from Batman, where he would take the stunts too far and set stuff on fire and people get hurt. But she was a stunt girl that would take things too far, so she couldn't get hired. So then she had to like rob things to stay alive. And then she
Wow.
got addicted. She's addicted to that thrill. She's
Yeah.
addicted to that thrill. And then the ultimate thrill is the chase with Batman. You know what I mean? So I always thought that would be fun. I think I can do a good run with that.
Yeah. Throw a little Clayface in there.
Yeah.
Because they're both film type of villains, Interesting. You love, and you always bring out so many like kind of offbeat, nichey things. Sometimes it's something I've noticed of you that just are so interesting. But it, because they're so untapped. It to me like they're untapped, and like you said, they're rich to further explore because there's so much with it that it just wasn't tapped yet. So like,
Well,
you can really dig into it and give it a little bit more oomph.
I mean, like, yeah. I mean, obviously, if they hand me Batman, I'll do Batman. like,
Of course,
I
of
need
course.
to find. You got to
Yeah.
find other characters too.
Yeah. So, all right, with that, so not IP related, but really with all of these skills and talents and abilities, what's your goal with, uh, say, film and or comics? Like, what is your dream project, or what are you maybe even working towards, if anything, right now? Are you
Maybe
still just trying to figure it out? Because to me, you're such a happy-go-lucky cat. You do so much, but I know there's so many talents there and stories there. I'm curious, what is like if you like right now if Bill Gates or just any of these big studios were to like Joe Carabeo, I want to give you this check. Give me the project that's gonna blow me fucking away that I've never seen before.
Well, here's the thing. This is business talk right now. Smart business is someone gives you money, you don't just spend it on stuff that will help you lose money. Like you don't just spend it on stuff to waste. You use that money to make more money. So the key thing that I want to do is in this DMV Nova area, I would like to create an awesome series or group of movies that we can just always make here and that will always facilitate and always inspire more things to be made and use the same studios. I'm always looking at Ashburn and I'm just like, dude, we have all these like what's it called, those database centers, and I drive around, I'm like, those look like sound stages to me. I want to
Mm.
have sound stages there. I want to be able to make movies here. I don't want to have to go over to Los Angeles. I don't want to go to Atlanta. I don't want to go to New York. Those places are fine, but I love my town.
Yeah.
I love this area, and it'll be so cool to like make a series, like just like how Netflix has theirs up in Brooklyn. You can make Marvelous Miss Maisel in the studio. I'd love to be able to do that and make something that people freaking think is awesome. It's
Hell
freaking
yeah.
cool and on the fringe and hip. You know what I mean? Just not like I'm not saying that what we make in Virginia is is lame sauce or something like that, but it's yet to still break break the barrier of iconic. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like,
I don't think we found our voice in a lot of ways.
and
There's a
it's
lot of different voices, but there's I don't think also something that really speaks yet. But I
and
love
it,
kind of like what you're saying. Yeah.
but also this area is also super weird and conspiracy ridden as well too.
Hell yeah.
It's
Which
so
makes it
strange
so
that we can't
rich.
do that.
Yeah.
It's like if you can you have shows about Bel Air, you have shows about this. It's like I really wanted to have like a show that's just like we'll just call it 703, and it's like how to make it in America, but it's based off of North Virginia people. You know what I mean?
Dude, with just the Burke backyard wrestling story that you said earlier, that would be amazing as like a young teen
I
series of
have
just
that.
a bunch of nerds, well, just kids that all of a sudden find a love for wrestling. Dude, what you just said is like, I want to watch that.
Well, see, one of the stories, maybe we're breaking ice, and I was talking with Sanjay Dutt about. I don't know if this is official or not, but like he himself with his group of wrestlers had such a great bond. Like he would tell me it's like Jay Lethal, Sanjay Dutt, Motor City Machine Guns, all coming up at the same exact time, like in pro wrestling, and they had their great road stories. They had their ups and downs. They had their veterans going on. And, I was asking him. I was like, you know what? Also, that sounds like Entourage. I was like, if we can do the wrestler meets Entourage. You know what I mean? Like doing that with those core group of like you get those intertwined stories building up, and then have it like road story style, film it in this area. I was like, we can do so many things. I
Hell
was like, this
yeah.
is perfect, man.
I'd be tuned in, bro, every week,
Yeah,
man.
I had that treatment. It's the thing, man. Too bad the world's gonna end, Patrick.
We're trying to not think about the world right now, though, sir. Um,
No, but like this area, I always say this: we have everything we need here in this area to make amazing stories.
completely agree. Completely agree. Um, Dude, we've covered a lot. I'm like looking at the time. We're going on almost 2.5 hours now. Um, and I still feel there's so much more I want to talk to you about and learn. But I know we both got different things we got to do. Um, Thank you for sharing your story, bro. I really appreciate it. It's inspiring. I appreciate you as a friend, and there's just so many different things that I think we can learn and from this shared experience, and the people that are going to be watching and looking at this once I have it up there. I just think it's so beautiful that we can go through all these different life experiences and still find our own path. And there's so many things that we're still learning as we're carving it right
But
now.
Patrick,
Yeah.
am I Filipino enough?
You are Filipino enough, sir. And again, and that's also why I was trying to pinpoint that out there earlier. I bring in the little Filipino tangent because it that's what brings the people in right now, because it's just highlighting ourselves, because a lot of people don't know that we out here and we're existing, but we don't have to be stereotypical in a lot of ways. And that's also why I want to tell this East Coast version of us, because your story that you just shared is different than some of the West Coast interviews I've done and the Canadian interviews I've done.
And I haven't even told any of the
And we didn't even really dig in either.
I didn't
But
think
that's why
about
we're
the
gonna have
negative
more
side.
episodes, bro, and we're gonna talk and share. But because we've already talked to these people for 2.5 hours right now, we're gonna have to dive back, because I want to get into, okay, once you graduated, how you started making Black Magic Tales, then got actually into the profession of being a filmmaker on your own post college, and just everything else since then.
I never talked about the one glaringly racist thing that happened to me.
And we need to do that, and I want to get there, but because of time, I don't want to. This just, like I said, we have to come back, and plus
Next episode.
Next
We'll
episode.
we'll get heavy next episode.
Yeah, but we gave y'all a lot on this one. The biggest thing I want to do is, before we leave out, is if you're in the Richmond area, what is it, February 8th, brother?
That's right, February 8th
Let
at
'em know.
the Park RVA is the Richmond Film Network is having an Indie Fest. The whole entire day is a film festival. Here versus Everyone, my film, is playing at 4:30 at the Shortcuts block. We're going to be having giveaways. I'm going to be part of the Q&A afterwards as well.
There you go.
Say hi.
Salute to my brother Joe Carabeo. Kuya, I appreciate you, sir. You are Filipino enough.
Pinoy power.
Thank you for sharing your story, brother. I've always wanted to know more about the whole backyard wrestling stuff, and now we got a little bit of that. I now know that you and I need to provoke maybe some of these other people to like maybe create, because there's a story not only with the treatment you're saying with Sanjay and Motors Machidi, and road stories. Your fucking story of what you and Sanjay were doing in school could be a fucking epic young adult series and be awesome.
I have behind the scenes, sir. There's a closet here that has all the tapes and behind the scenes.
And that's another thing I would always want. I want to do. You know what? We need to do Filipino food at your house and maybe screen a couple of those too, which would be super dope. And I'd love to check that out. Joe, let's end this off with something Filipino then. As you know, at the beginning, I say I'm the Adobro, the Babink boy, the leader of the Hala Hala homies in the Sinagang gang. What's your favorite Filipino dish, man?
My favorite Filipino dish. Oh my!
You know what I'm saying? Are you a Tocino Terminator? Are you a Longaniza lover? Are you a kare crazy man? That's weak.
Yeah.
What's your favorite?
You don't like kare kare? Kare kare with peanut butter,
Yeah.
I mean, everyone's. I'm not gonna lie, man. Sinigang is the bomb.
So you're part of the Sinigang gang.
I'm the Sinigang gang.
I love it.
I make that. I make sinigang.
Oh, do you now?
Yeah. You don't make it?
Oh.
You don't know how to make it?
My wife has learned from my mom, but I've never made it. So I need to try some of my man Joe Carabeo's Sinigang.
Patrick, it's so easy, sir.
I'm pretty sure it is, bro, but I don't cook like that.
It's just a stew.
Yeah, I know, but I don't cook like that. So, I got to try some of your Sinigang, man. Anything else you want to tell them, man, before we get up out of here, man? We talked about the RVA joint. Throw your handles, all of that. They're going to be in the description below. Any other things before we sign off out, man?
So everyone, go to joecarabeo.com. Also follow me as Astray J on Instagram. Plus, go to the YouTubes, man. I never tell people to go to the YouTube, but yeah, go search me on YouTube, and you can, if you go to my page, there's a playlist. I'll play all of my films. Check out Station 33, and then Kira vs. Everyone will probably come back online on February 10th. Go there, like it a million times, and keep on telling me to make the next episode so you can tell the whole entire world that we need to see what Kira versus the Hunter is going to be. So,
so that's the name. Interesting.
You didn't hear from me.
Yo, Joe, I appreciate you, man. Love you, brother. Thank you for sharing your story. We're doing it again because, again, as you can tell, we can talk and it's gonna go long. So this just gives me more content to do with you. I love it, and we're gonna have to do it over food.
We didn't even touch about my music.
Exactly. But dude, we'd be going for another 3-4 hours, and I'm tired as fuck, bro. We started. If I would have had more energy, we probably would have kept on going, but we'll just have to cut it up. You already know how it is, brother. It's a lot to talk about, but that's just because you're one busy man, and you're such a talent, brother. And I'm so proud to know you as a friend, and I can't wait to see what you're gonna do next. And we'll do that at the next conversation. We'll talk about it then.
I appreciate it, Patrick.
My brother Joe Carabeo. I'm Kuya P. Nerds rule the world. Salamat, mahal kita. Until next episode, go show love at Joe at that event. All his links are in the description below. We're up out of here because I'm tired, and that's my brother Joe. We'll be back again next time. In a 1, 2, 3.